Hello and welcome to a new edition of You Are My Boro. New Boro head coach, new jazzy intro spectacular for You Are My Boro. If you're listening on the podcast platforms, you probably won't appreciate just what absolute gold dust we've served up there, Dom.
I was struggling to keep a straight face at the bottom there when it was waiting to come on. Yeah, big day for us.
Big day
for us.
You've been down to Rockliffe to see the new head coach, and we've just literally pulled that out the fire. What time?
And funnily enough, Hellberg pulled me to one side at the end of the presser and said how much he's been enjoying You Are My Boro so far this season.
I can well imagine that. Well, imagine how excited he's going to be by that intro. I mean, there we go. Welcome to You Are My Boro. We are going to talk all things Kim Hellberg. Dom's been down at Rockliffe, so we'll talk first impressions, what Hellberg said, what we think the new look Boro is going to look like. And obviously we'll do that in the context of looking back a little bit at the Coventry game and probably more so looking ahead to Derby at the weekend. Normal rules apply. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, please do like, subscribe, leave us a comment. If you're listening on the podcast platforms, rate and review. We'll flag up the subscription offer for the Echo towards the end of this vid. I know we keep banging the drum on that, but we massively appreciate your support. We know people have been backing us on that, and it really, really does help. Right, Dom. Rockliffe this afternoon, day one. Kim Hellberg. Boro posted a fancy video of him walking in twilight. No, it wasn't twilight. It was pretty much pitch black this morning when he first started. You've been down there with the rest of the press.
Pouring down, wasn't it?
Pouring down, yeah. Starts you mean to go on. You've been down there with the rest of the press pack. I mean, before we get into what he said, what did you make of him? What did you make of the way he kind of carried himself? What were the first impressions?
It was good. I mean, we were having a conversation afterwards. I think we kind of take it for granted, really, just how impressive it is that a 37-year-old bloke can come in and sit and talk for 45 minutes, not in his native language, asking questions from who were being asked by people who he's never met before. He has no idea kind of, what their intentions are, who they are, where they're working. Well, I mean, it must be daunting, but if it was, it didn't show. He was really relaxed. And when we've spoken to Swedish journalists who've worked with him, they've said, haven't they, straight down the line, he's very open and honest. And he said that when he was asked kind of what can fans expect from you, he said, I will try and be as open and honest as I can be. Now, clearly, he's not going to come in and give us every detail about every player week in, week out. There's always a line that a head coach can't cross, isn't there? But I suspect he is going to be pretty straight down the line. He was today, and I thought he was really good. There was I mean, we'll get into it, but there was a really good balance today between the football side of things, but also him as well, giving an insight into him, the bloke, talked about his family, his upbringing, the fact that he was sat on the bus, on the team bus. His dad was a manager, and that he was sat on the team bus with his dad when he was 5 or 6, and how proud a moment it must be for his dad. It must be for his dad now, who was sat next to him at the Riverside on Tuesday night, to see your son unveiled as a head coach, introduced in front of thousands of fans, and unveiled as a head coach at a club the size and stature of Middlesbrough. So yeah, it was good today. I really enjoyed it.
Stupid question. This did he come across as kind of young? If you know what I mean, did you feel you were talking to someone at who is young, who is inexperienced, or did he not really carry himself like that?
Well, he said that we've talked about this last week, haven't we? That he's been coaching kind of 15 years or so now, and he said he realised pretty early on because he shadowed his dad. Really, he was always attracted to coaching, but he said he realised pretty early on he wasn't going to make it as a top end footballer, so went into coaching. So, although he's young, he's my age, and I know I look a hell of a lot older, but I still try and class myself as young, although when you're coming into I think now if I was a footballer, I'd have to hang up my boots now, or I'd have been moved back from a centre forward to midfield because you've lost your legs.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt.
But so he's.
I'm well into my managerial career. Not Roy Hodgson levels yet, but getting there.
But he did remind us that he's been coaching for a while now, and that he might be young in terms of like an old school manager. You know, his assistant's 31. 10, 15 years ago, we weren't having managers who were 37, assistants who were 31, is it? But it is increasingly common when you look around the divisions, isn't it? And I think it was just keen to remind really that, yeah, I might only be 37, but I've been coaching a hell of a long time now, really. I've got plenty of experience.
So in terms of what he said then, I mean, very early days quite clearly, but was there any indication of what his Boro team will look like, how he wants his Boro team to play, the style, how he's going to set them up, all that kind of side of things?
It was really good on that. So I've got it here, so I'll read a bit. But first of all, just to kind of set the tone, really, set the scene, he said on more than one occasion that he clearly has an image and has a vision for how he wants his team to play. But I think he's conscious of a couple of things. A, the fact he's coming in the middle of a season. And B, the fact he's coming to a team that, yeah, I know Boro have only won 3 in 11, but the third in the championship. There's clearly not an awful lot wrong. There was an acknowledgement throughout that he knows, regardless of how he might want his team to look 2 years down the line, he's not going to come in and rip everything up and start again. He said on that, he was asked about what he wants his team to look like. And he says, that's also a bit tricky coming in the middle of the season in terms of I only get 2 sessions before the Derby game and you don't want to change too much. I thought this bit was interesting. He said, you want to create an environment where the players feel safe in terms of the middle of the season. So he's not going to come in and completely rip it up. Maybe I can adapt certain things or can change something. For me, over the long term, it's maybe a different answer. Then you start to work towards what he wants his team to look like. I want to play aggressive, high defending football. I want to win the ball back as quickly as possible. I want to control the ball and as quickly as possible find the free man that takes the ball forward. That is one thing that is key. I love keeping the ball, but it has to be a purpose of taking the ball forward. I suspect fans will like the sound.
I was going to say that's music to the ears of Boro, because I think one of the worries, with Boro fans kind of pouring over what Hellberg's teams have looked like, what people have said about them is, is this Michael Carrick Mark II? Is Hellberg's Boro team going to just keep the ball for the sake of keeping the ball and actually do nothing with it? Well, you can say what you want. We'll have to see how his team actually plays. But from what he said there, that's not what he wants his team to do, is it?
And what I also thought was interesting was he was asked about kind of his managerial influences, really, and inspirations. And he mentioned De Zerbi, which he has done in previous interviews. Yeah. Or I've seen that referenced in previous interviews. He also talked about Bielsa's Leeds and how much he loved Bielsa's Leeds. Well, I mean, Bielsa's Leeds, it was beautiful chaos, really, wasn't it? Mm. It was, I mean, if you're a head coach, hellfire, it must be stressful, but it's good to watch, isn't it? Christ almighty, it's edge of the seat stuff. Now, clearly, he doesn't want his team to be a carbon copy of any of the teams or managers he's mentioned there, but they're just references, and I think give an indication of what he might want his team to look like. But he also talked about how, March, the next international break, so he's not going to have really a prolonged stint on the training pitch. He talked about how he'll clearly try and drip feed and slowly implement certain things that he wants. But that also, a couple of times he referenced the use of video. So I asked him about the attack. How do you get the attack functioning better when you maybe haven't got as much time on the training field as you'd like? And he said, well, we put the time on the training pitch to good use, but also we do as much video work as we can. And where we might not have the opportunity to do it with the players, we can still show them. We can still show them what we'd like them to do, what they're doing, what they're not, maybe what we'd like them to improve on. So I think Salini's big on that as well. So I think he won't overload the players, but clearly he's going to drip feed the things and the ways he wants Boro to look and the way he wants Boro to play.
An acknowledgement from him that attack has to be the early focus.
Yeah, I mean, not as much, but he talked about the attack. There was one line, and I made a note of it here, where he basically said, what was interesting, I think it was in the broadcast section. There was a few the responses on socials I'd seen, that the press conference had cut off for fans that were asking. Well, that was because we'd asked if the written section could be embargoed, if we could keep back some of the written section. So that's why if fans were wondering why it had gone off after the broadcast, we started talking. It was because just so we can save some of the written stuff for the next few days to ourselves, obviously. But he was asked about the attack, and he said after one training session, I already know that I've got the players here. I already know that we have the talent here, that we have the quality. And he said something like, it's now about giving them a structure that suits them. And I thought that was interesting, that, you know, he is not going to come in, I don't think, and say, well, you know, the reason we haven't been scoring as many as we'd like is because we haven't got X or Y, and in January we need this or that. You know, he might well want certain things in January. Let's see if we get there. But I think he's going to come in, look at the attacking players and actually think there's just a different, by tweaking things, we can get more out of them. He then talked openly about how he spent loads of time watching videos of the strikers from not just this season, but the last few seasons, because he said, although I have a way I want my side to look and I want Boro to play, clearly what I need to do is get the most out of the players that are here now. And I think that's important, isn't it? We talked about this previously, haven't we? You know, in the age of Amorim and Postecoglou, where no matter what happens, I have a philosophy and I will stick to this philosophy. What I think here is that there'll actually be, clearly there's a way he wants Boro to play, but there'll also be a flexibility to how do I get results and how do I get the most out of this squad in the short term as well.
And you touched there on what he was saying about his background and his upbringing and all that kind of thing. So what struck you in that? What kind of did you feel that he was saying there that you found particularly interesting?
Well, I thought that the background was obviously about his dad and the fact that he grew up following his dad's career. I think his dad coached various clubs in Sweden. But he was also talking about the here and now. He's got a 3-year-old at home, Harry, and a 6-week-old girl as well.
Really?
But he was saying his family are coming over at the end of January because they thought that it was best for him to come over, get settled, and then once everything's settled down, and, you know, for the first couple of months, he can just throw everything into the job. Once everything's settled down, then his family can come over. But he was saying, and at one point, I actually thought, I thought he was going to get a bit emotional at one point when he was talking about how much he was missing his little boy already, but he's been on FaceTime to him all the time, obviously, and he's already got a Boro shirt, and he'd seen pictures of him watching the game. You know, I think you kind of forget the sacrifices. Like, they are paid extremely well in football, and you know, clearly that is a huge factor. But the hours that they put in, but also the family ties as well. You know, I have 2 young boys here, obviously a bit older than that, and like the idea of moving to Europe now and just leaving them for 3-4 months, I wouldn't fancy it. It's incredibly daunting, isn't it? And I think you kind of forget about that human side of it sometimes. But he was really, really open talking about that, which I think benefits us. I mean, that'll help us, won't it, down the line, if he's going to be so open and talk honestly like that. But I also think it'll help him with the fans as well, when fans can kind of relate to you as a bloke as well as the head coach. That helps, doesn't it? You know, Tony Mowbray, we loved doing presses with Mowbray, didn't he? Because he'd talk openly about absolutely anything. But it also helped with fans, didn't it? That fans could relate to Mowbray. Fans could see that he is a really, really good bloke. And I think it will help Hellberg if he continues to be as open and honest, both like personally speaking, obviously within reason, and professionally about the football as he was today.
And what did he say today in terms of Vivash, the coach and staff, all that kind of side of things?
Yeah, so he talked about Salini and obviously the importance of his role. They've worked together, I think, since when they were at Varnamo. And with Vivash, he was, you know, really, really clear. I want him here. I want him next to me. I'm going to do everything I can to pick his brains and get as much out of him as I can. which I think makes sense, doesn't it, for all the reasons we talked about last week. So, I mean, what'll be interesting is clearly they'll like the dynamic of personality will play out over the course of the coming weeks, won't it? Like they'll suss out how each other works, and they'll suss out how it's going to work moving forward. But there's a willingness, clearly a huge willingness on all sides there, isn't there? Hellberg really wants Vivash as part of things. Vivash clearly wants to stay. Boro's hierarchy are desperate for him to stay. So, it's been confirmed that Vivash is staying put. Don't think there's anything to worry about there going forward, is there?
So Hellberg was obviously at the Riverside, as you were on Tuesday night for the Coventry game. We won't rake over that too much, but what do you, other than the fact that Tommy Conway needs to keep his head down when he's shooting 6 yards out, what will Hellberg have taken away from that game, do you think? And what lessons do Boro have to learn from a night when, for long periods, let's be fair, they went absolutely toe-to-toe with the best team in the league and yet still came away being the latest team to have conceded 4 to Coventry and obviously another defeat?
He kind of said, Hellberg, similar to what we've all said in the last couple of days, like Boro matched them, if not outplayed them for long parts. But Coventry were more ruthless. Coventry had the cutting edge, and that is probably why they're top and 10 points clear and have scored all the goals this season. I think Tuesday perfectly summed up where Boro are at, really. Defensively, it was an off night, wasn't it? Boro have not given away goals like that this season. All goals were avoidable, but certainly the first 3. I think the 4th goal, if you have Dale Fry playing at centre-half, standing on Ellis Sims's toes, I think it's a hell of a lot more of a difficult night for Ellis Sims. But clearly the first goal should be cut out. The second goal, he manages to get the cross back in, then it's a free header. The third goal, it's pinball in the box, Silvera's heavy touch, and then Brin's save. It could go anywhere. So it was an off night for the defence. But then going forward, I think it was a lot of what we've seen from Boro, like really dominated possession, dominated territory, but just struggled to turn that into clear-cut openings. The Conway miss aside, obviously. Boro only had 2 shots on target.
Which was even more the tail at Oxford as well, wasn't it, Reece?
Yeah. And I think Conway should score the winner in both games. He misses the header in the last minute or late on at Oxford when he should score. And obviously he needs to score in that game at Coventry. What does Hellberg do with Conway, do you think? I mean, you can't drop him on Saturday, can you? You can't come in and drop your number 9, can you? I know he started 30. He was really strong on him today. Though we're using those quotes on Saturday morning, so keep your eyes peeled on the paper, in the paper and online on Saturday, because we're using those quotes then. But yeah, what do you think he does with Conway?
I mean, it's 13 without a goal for him, isn't it? So I mean, the miss on Tuesday is obviously a glaring one, and that's the one that's at the forefront of everyone's mind. But actually, it's a much kind of longer passage of work now that we've seen with Conway, where he hasn't been able to score. That said, I think for a couple of reasons he starts on Saturday. I think one, because, as you've said, Hellberg doesn't want to come in and completely upset the apple cart. Well, dropping your striker without having given him a chance to play is about the biggest statement you can make, other than probably dropping your keeper as head coach. So I don't see it happening for that reason. And then also, obviously, Strelic has got the injury issues. Is Kalisen the right man to go up front and lead the line? He might be eventually. I think that will be a hugely big call to make for your first game at the weekend. So while I accept with you that Conway is an issue now, and he clearly can't go another 13 games without scoring, I don't think Saturday is the day when you drop him and turn everything upside down.
No. And Strelic was pictured in training today, which is clearly a major positive. Vivash was really good on him after Tuesday night, wasn't it? I'm sure he would have seen him by now, but he'd been to London, he'd had a scan on the foot injury, and it didn't show any major damage. And Vivash had kind of said, more mentally really than anything, he hopes the clarity, the fact that he now knows there's no damage there, means, he wasn't disputing at all that Strelic was suffering with it. He said he's finding it extremely painful, but now you know that there's no serious damage there. Hopefully he can move forward, and the fact he's in training today is a positive. And I do want to see Strelic get a run as a 9, as a centre forward, because I don't think we've really seen it yet, other than in the first couple of weeks when he was just settling in, wasn't he? I mean, he still is, but he'd obviously just come then. But you don't put Strelic in, I don't think, do you? Having missed the last 2 games, and I just think it'd be an antagonistic move to drop Conway. He won't, will he? Conway.
I don't think so. No, I mean,
I don't think he'll make a lot of changes. I think there might be 1 or 2 tweaks, but I don't think he'll change much on Saturday.
In terms of the defence, any indications on Fry, on target, on where we're at with, I think we know Edmondson and Lenihan are a fair bit further down the line, but
so nothing really today on that. It almost felt a bit unfair to ask him. I know that sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, I get that.
On the back of one session, it felt maybe unfair to ask him about Dale, where we know there's like an underlying issue there. Vivash said on Tuesday night, we don't know when Dale's going to be back because we're managing it day by day.
That's a worry, isn't it? It's a worry because he's been so good this season. He is such an influential figure, but we do know that there is that injury record there. There is that issue there. I mean, Rob Edwards was saying, wasn't he, that I think I'm right in saying that Rob Edwards was saying actually he's in every day because they need to keep it kind of active. They need to keep him on a really strict program. Well, that is a worry moving forward, isn't it?
And I think, from Fry's perspective, what must be so incredibly difficult is if you're a professional footballer and, clearly you don't want to get injured, but if you pull your calf or get a stress fracture or hellfire, even like a more serious injury like an ACL or a broken bone, at least you have an idea, right? You're going to be out for 4 weeks or 3 months or a year. Like the longer term, obviously the harder to take, but you can then get your head around that, right? What does the rehab look like? What does the recovery look like? When am I going to be back training? I think it must be the uncertainty that's most challenging. I thought that with Matt Clark when he was going through his run. Now, Fry's clearly hasn't had the issues that Clark has, who didn't play a minute for 14, 15 months. But that still must be extremely difficult for Fry, and especially on the back. I think at times in the first couple of months of this season, he's looked as good as he's ever looked for Boro. And now you've got a new manager coming in. You'd be desperate to make an impact. He's been wearing the armband. It must be so incredibly challenging for him. I don't think he'll play on Saturday. There was no indication today, but just from what we know, I'd be surprised if he came back. I think Hellberg will go to a 4, maybe of Britton, Jones, Ayling and Target.
Yeah.
Then he's got a decision to make. Will it be 4-2-3-1 or will it be 4-3-3? If it's 4-3-3, will it be Morris, Brown and Hackney? I suspect so. And then I think it'd probably be the same forward 3 of McGree. If McGree's ready to play another game 4 days after, obviously on the back of his recent injuries, McGree, Whittaker, Conway, that'd be my guess at the team. I'd be amazed if he came in and he's not going to, is he? But I'd be amazed if he came in and made more than a couple of tweaks to the side on the back of 2 training sessions.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree. I think he'll want to have a look at the side that's kind of been playing, won't he, again, to see what, and then maybe make the changes. I mean, I guess if he wants to be more on the front foot and almost send a statement out, you could take Brown out and play a Nipan or a Strelic if he's available off Conway and be that little bit more attacking. But I think, like you, I think it's only going to be minor tweaks to the team. I can't see him coming up with any. I mean, he's not had the training sessions to be able to do it for a start, has he? So,
well, I've said Morris there. We talked about Morris, but obviously Morris hobbled off injured in the first half. And now, Vivash did say afterwards, we think he could have carried on. He'd have been fine to carry on, but we just made the decision. So there was no indication that was serious. But if it's a 2, it might well be Brown and Hackney. I actually thought Morris had a poor first half and Brown had a good second half as well. So there'd be a case. You could easily make the case that it should be Brown and Hackney, but tough game, I think, Derby, isn't it? I mean,
I was going to say that. Let's wrap up with that. I mean, what are your thoughts on Derby? I mean, obviously, everyone's had so much focus on the Coventry game and Coventry this and Coventry that, but Derby are having a good season.
They are. I mean, they had a rough start, didn't they? Then picked themselves up. And did they get into the top 6 last weekend? Or Then they were 2-0 up against Watford, which I was delighted about because I had them in my midweek treble, and then lost 3-2, didn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, Eustace has tended to have Boro's number a bit, certainly at the Riverside, hasn't he, over the course of the last couple of years. But I guess the difficulty for Eustace is really the element of the unknown with Hellberg. I think it'll be a good game. I think it's a good game for Boro because for all Derby are a decent team. They're not Coventry, but they're going to they always travel well, so they're going to bring decent fans. There'll be a class atmosphere there. So I think it'll be. I don't think it's a bad first game for Hellberg, but I think it's a tough run of games coming up. And with that in mind, especially on the back of 1 point from 6, I think it's important that he gets off to a winning start on Saturday. Do you?
I do. Yeah, I do. I'm just looking here at the side they played. They obviously won at Swansea in the midweek. They played 5 at the back and 2 centre halves: Matt Clark, Danny Bart.
Oh, Danny Bart! God, there's a blast from the past.
there's a couple of blasts from the past.
Carlton Morris did I see Carlton Morris has done his ACL?
Yeah, he didn't play. Yeah, I think he's got a long-term injury. Yeah, Brereton Diaz played, and Vyman came off the bench, who was another player who always seems to play well against Boro. But
this is just championship. This is like championship years, isn't it? Brereton Diaz, Vyman, Clark.
Yeah, it does. No, I'm with you. I think it is an important game because I think that he has inherited a Boro side that are really well placed, but he's also inherited a Boro side who you could argue that for the last month haven't really been on it. Mm-hmm. I think that's fair. There have been moments, obviously the Birmingham game, the real standout, but even then Boro were hanging on really, weren't they? Like, I don't think there's any doubt that for the last month or so, Boro have not looked as effective as they had for certainly the first 6 weeks, maybe first couple of months of the season. So I just think that, if they weren't to win at the weekend, then all of a sudden it's maybe 1 win from 5 or 6. It's
only 3 wins and 11 now.
3 wins and 11 going into it. Yeah, it's 2, missed opportunities at home in a week. I just think for Hellberg to kind of, get a bit of wind in his sails, hit the ground running, I think it's important that Boro do win this at the weekend. I think they will. I think there'll be enough positivity and enough momentum. And like you say, Derby will be a threat, but you're right. They're not Coventry. They're not Ipswich. I don't think they're at that level. So I think it's a definite opportunity for Boro. I'm like you. I don't think he'll make a whole load of changes, but I think it's an important game because, there's some tricky ones coming up, isn't there, off the back of this?
Yeah, there are. And, Hull are going well. I know Charlton have had a rotten couple of weeks, haven't they? But the Valley's not an easy place to go. I fancy Boro. I think the occasion will fuel Boro. And Hellberg talked about that, actually. He said how he got goosebumps when he went out before the game. And he said there was a spell in the second half where Coventry couldn't get out their own half, and it almost felt like the fans were playing a part in like pinning Coventry back. It was a good atmosphere, and I think it'll be the same.
It'll be an even better one potentially on Saturday if Boro can, get up and running, won't it?
Well, the bad news is we don't have a fancy outro.
Prediction. Let's end with a prediction.
Oh, sorry. 2-0.
2-0. I was going to go 2-1. I was going to go 2-1.
Conway and Bergzog from the bench.
Conway, but I'll go 2-1. Hackney and who's going to get the second? Strelec off the bench.
That'll do. We'll take either of those.
We'll take either of them, won't we?
We'll take either of those.
You're right. No fancy outro. That's what we need to work on.
That can be our next step. We're always trying to better ourselves here at You Are My Borough in the Northern Echo. So that can be the next step. The subscription offer is still running, by the way, just £6 for 6 months or £26 that will take you through to the end of next year. I'll put the link to that in the notes. I know we say it every week, but massively appreciate. We've had loads of support on that and this last month. So really, really appreciate that. And that offer is still running. So take advantage of that. Now, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Enjoy the game on Saturday.
It's you on Saturday, isn't it? You're there on Saturday.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. It should be good. And I hope you do too. Enjoy it. And we'll be back next week on You Are My Borough. Take care.